Hello, everyone. This is John Clemens with MESA International, and welcome to the 2019 fourth annual Smart Stories Award winners interview. We're glad that you're here. Thank you very much for joining. If you don't know anything about the Smart Story Awards or what we're doing here, the Smart Story Awards were created 4 years ago so that MESA could celebrate the smart people and the smart technologies that are all driving smart manufacturing. So I want to say, first of all, thank you to all the people that submitted stories this year into our contest. We've had a lot of great submissions. This is the fourth year we've been doing this, and I got to tell you, we've had the best submissions, the best stories that we've ever had this year, and choosing the winners here has been very, very difficult. So much thanks to everybody that submitted a story into our contest this year. They were all very, very good. Thank you very much, and we hope that you will continue to participate in our Smart Story Awards in years to come. The one thing I'd like to do to start is to thank our media sponsors. We were very fortunate this year to have 8 really great media sponsors, and I want to say a special thanks to each of them for their support of our Smart Story Awards program. I would also be remiss if I didn't also thank MESA's Keystone sponsors. We have platinum and gold sponsors, and these companies are committed to the vision that MESA has and the things that MESA are doing. And we just want to thank all of these companies for their commitment to MESA and their commitment to the vision, and thank them for being our sponsors. For our discussions today, you can use your controls on the webinar to open and close your panels. You can submit written questions in the question box at the end. We're going to have an entire Q&A session at the end, and I think we have plenty of time set up for that Q&A session. So please think of questions and type those in. Also, this session is being recorded, and it's going to be posted along with the slides to our resource library in about a week, and they're going to be available to all of our premium members simply by going to mesa.org to get that. With me today is Chris Kammer. Chris is the chair of the Knowledge Committee, and Chris is going to be running our Q&A session after we hear from our presenters. So what we're going to do today is we have 3 presenters, and these are the top 3 winners in our contest this year. Our winner in first place is going to be presented by Robert Ottenhoff. He is the managing consultant for MOM with ATS Global, and his presentation is going to be on North American baked goods manufacturer undergoes digital transformation. Then in second place was Wellington Giolo, Senior Director, and the story around business development and Senior Director, Business Development and Strategic Alliances with 42Q, and the story around improving quality and throughput in medical device production focused on cloud-based electronic DHRs. And then finally, we'll hear from Subha Rao, the Director Innovation to Market with Siemens, and his story building innovative companies from the ground up. Again, I've got to say it was very difficult to pick these 3 as the winners. The ultimate decision was made primarily by the number of downloads that these presentations and these stories received. But I got to tell you, we had so many great stories that were submitted this year that I'd like to encourage you to go out to MESA, to look at those stories, to download those stories, because they're great stories, and there's something from almost every industry and kind of every different direction that's possible. And these are we think the best of the best, and highlight um, the different things that we want to talk about today. So let's just get into it. Our first presentation is going to be from Robert Ottenhoff. It's about the North American baked goods manufacturer undergoing a digital transformation. It's all about supporting day-to-day manufacturing operations, and its results were all about inventory management, product traceability, warehouse management, and production planning and scheduling. So I'm just going to turn it over to Robert and let him start our presentations this morning.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for attending. Just, I would say a quick look behind the scenes about this particular digital transformation at this baked goods manufacturer in North America. Quick history on this. The MES solution was based off of a template solution that has been put together with the purpose of being able to quickly roll out to similar businesses within the food and beverage industry, and though somehow also different in terms of the type of product to be produced. So as you can see here, the template was also used for a solution in the meat plant for the same global manufacturer, but we also were able to, after a gap analysis and the associated implementation, roll it out to the bakery plant. And that's basically what this story is all about. There were a couple of key goals for this bakery plant and also key characteristics for this particular bakery plant. Now, the first thing was that this was a brand new manufacturing facility, a so-called greenfield, to manufacture bakery products. Think about cakes, any pastries, regular bread, croissants, any type of bakery products that you would find in your local grocery store. Now, what was important for this facility is that right from the get-go, they would be able to do a full product traceability, while and also because they had to comply to the regulatory standards that are posed to them, of course, being a food manufacturer. And at the same time, which was very important for them in their minds, is that we live in the day and age where we would no longer want to use paper reports on the shop floor as much as we can. So a paperless and fully automated production process was really one of the main drivers for implementing this solution. That'll bring me to the next slide, which will then tell us a little bit about the project scope in some more detail. So what we did as ATS Global was really an end-to-end project lifecycle in order to be able to deploy this solution. Started all the way from the beginning, doing the requirements analysis for the particular plant, and the gap analysis, right? Keep in mind, it's based on a template solution, but there is always a gap that you have to fulfill. So we did the gap analysis, which also shortened our timeline, by the way. And we provided software architecture design as well as the functional design for the solution. Obviously, then went into the implementation. And after that, the integration with a wide range of other systems, being all the manufacturing equipment on the shop floor, all the different types of OEM equipment and communication protocols. Once we were able to establish the communication back and forth, so between the MES solution, ISA 95 level 3, to all the equipment on the shop floor, so ISA 95 levels 2, 1, and 0. We were ready to do a testing and a deployment on site at the actual bakery facility, so the commissioning, right? A couple of things that we had to take care of from a functional standpoint was the recipe and the batch management, since one of the key drivers was to have a fully automated production process. They wanted to maintain all the recipes on MES level, and then when you start a production order, all instructions are being sent down to the shop floor equipment to automatically basically produce all your baked goods. For that, we had to put in bidirectional communication between that MES and all the shop floor equipment, which we did through a data concentrator device. So we basically built a gateway between the MES on the one hand and all the shop floor, different types of shop floor equipment on the other hand, to streamline that communication and also provide communication reliability through message buffers and handshakes and so on and so forth. Other things that were important in this project were warehouse management, because this company decided to made a strategic decision to put in an MES, because an MES covers typically the four main pillars of production, inventory, quality, and maintenance. And so their strategic initiative was to include some of the warehouse management within the inventory pillar of the MES. And then the other thing was important is master data management, which is something that we actually also had to help them out with structuring that before it could even be used. It was not like this was ready to go as for this particular solution. There was not an ERP or any PLM system present at that point. So we also supported structuring the master data and make it fit for purpose. And this will bring me to my next slide, which gives us a quick overview on the approach for solution. So basically, the way that we approach this is very collaborative together with our clients. So right from the requirements analysis, the solution design, and even the development, most, if not all of it, happened side by side with our customer. And when I say side by side, means that we spend a lot of time on site, more than I think in a typical project, a typical implementation project. But this was also part the desire of this particular customer to become self-sufficient as soon as possible, and I think it was a really good initiative. So this more or less automatically made this a very agile software development process, and what we did also in order to actually improve our testing, improve the testing process, but also improve the test results, is do a full simulation of the shop floor production lines. So we simulated all the production lines, and I will get to that, in order to be able to really test our solution against this simulation. So we were already able to test the entire solution before we went into this actual plant and do the commissioning. This was really important because, keep in mind, this was a greenfield, so they were also at the same time, while we were developing the solution, this whole plant was being stood up, and so there was not a lot of us to test against. So this simulation was a big help. And it'll bring me to my next slide, that will actually give you a glimpse of which tools and systems that we use for this particular solution. So as you can see, this was a Siemens project, of course, and fundamentally based on the Somatic IT Production Suite, the MES. And what we added on there is the LMS, so line monitoring system, to fulfill the OEE requirements. Then another add-on, I would say, at that point was the pre-actor APS to be able to do detailed production scheduling. And as already mentioned, we did a simulation of the shop floor of all the production lines and the equipment. We used Siemens Technomatics Blend Simulation to fulfill that. All the communication done through Capro OPC, very well known middleware layer. And then, as I said, also our data concentrator, that was the gateway, or actually is the gateway, right, between the MES layer and the shop floor, is Allen Bradley ControlLogix Data Concentrator PLC. So that's on a high level what the solution is built on top of, and which would bring me to the next slide that shows us the results. Well, you can see it there, top left on the screen. Those were the physical results of this entire project. A very nice warm croissants and cookies straight from the production line. You won't get them any better. Obviously, the results of the project itself were actually that we achieved the paperless production process. There is no written reports on the shop floor that they have to key in the next day into a system, because everything is already registered into the solution that we built. It's been fully automated through that very tight integration between the MES layer and the shop floor. Because we register everything in the system, being all production and consumption transactions, we are able to build up this very granular product traceability, so the forward and backward genealogy that heavily supports their QA department in doing traces in case of a callback. Now, this company in particular is very proud that they don't ship at risk, so they haven't actually never done any trace, but so their exercise is to do on a monthly basis their mock recall, and it goes very, very fast thanks to this traceability. Also, because the system registers everything in real time, they get insight into the production operations. So where are we at, right? So at any given time, anyone in a plant can access the system to see if the production is on track for that day, but they can also have a real-time insight into the inventory levels. It is very important for in order to maintain all their purchase orders. And last but not least, so with this actual implementation, we help to strengthen that template for subsequent site rollouts, because right now we're at the point where we're looking at rolling this out to a third site, the same template solution.
All right, thank you very much, Robert. We appreciate that. Excellent story and excellent results. Thank you very much, sir. All right, let's move on to our next story. And this is Wellington Giolo, Senior Director from 42Q. And this story is about a medical device company that's using cloud-based electronic DHRs with a 30% increase in first pass yield, and they were able to cut their data collection processes by more than half. So let's turn it over to Wellington and hear this story.
Thanks, John, and good morning, everyone. I hope everybody is healthy and doing well. Actually here today to kind of walk you over that story that actually was written by a couple of my colleagues during a proof of concept implementation for a high complexity medical device company in 2019. Interesting enough, you're going to see some similarities, completely different business, completely different verticals, but there are some similarities in terms of what the customer is looking for to what Robert has just presented. You know, where customer is looking for, paperless process, more automation, improve real-time insight, and so forth. This company actually came to us because they needed to improve the quality of the device history record process in order to increase the throughput of a life-saving medical device. During their current production, when they came to us, the DHR for each device required manual collection up to 800 pieces of data to ensure compliance. In order to achieve that, there are a few other pre-requirements that need to be taken care as well, like product routing and process enforcements and track and trace, real-time visibility, and so forth. Next slide, please, John. Among several goals of this company, they really want the first things, or the main things, were increase the speed and accuracy of the device history record data collection. They also wanted to provide a real-time insight manufacturing. and improve their first pass yield. Though there are a few other things, but those are the key things they were looking at. And there were risks involved with their existing process, which one, highly dependent on paper-based records, which, highly depending on operators, training, certification, in performing at the job. Inability to ship good products due to incomplete GHR, you can navigate to the production floor and at certain points of the process, you find out that something was missing before. And obviously, you got to make sure that everything is 100% before you ship products out of the door. And everything, had to be done without causing production disruption during that implementation cycle. Next slide, John. As any other implementation, there were some challenges, and some of those were mapping, a very complex manual data collection process that they had embedded in their process for many years, and they knew they had problems, but at the end of the day, what they had, it was documented, it was working. That's what the plant was following. Automate the test data collection from machines directly to the EGHR. And as I mentioned, we're talking about up to 800 pieces of data. And finally, test the cloud-based MES without impacting current process. And that was a key thing for them. They want to do this pilot without causing any disruption to their manufacturing. And interesting enough, again, as I said, this was a POC. This customer came to us, say, here's our problem, here's what we want to do, and they trust what 42Q had to offer. And we need to get it done in a very short amount of time. So a total POC was roughly 90 days. It was about 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks between, requirements gathering and gap analysis, putting the solution in place, doing all the configuration, conference room pilot, having the go-no-go decision. So the whole thing took about 4 to 5 weeks. And then immediately after, the customer went live, and they pilot the system for another 60 days. And surprisingly, immediately after their go live, immediately after they start using that product for 42Q for that specific line, they saw a 30% increase in their first pass yield. They knew they had some problem, but because again, it's all totally paper-based, manual tracked, so they didn't know exactly how much they could improve, and that was a big surprise when they look at the results. The other, which was expected, was to cut the data collection process by more than a half, which changes the plant mindset. Again, they're completely switching over as a breakthrough based on what they've used to do. And finally, getting the EGHR providing a full traceability while with online documentation readily available for audits if needed. Next slide, please, John. Yeah, and finally, just to recap a little bit, so 42Q, the 42Q cloud-based MES was selected to increase, the efficiency and accuracy for a GHR for this customer. Main reason was based on they want to do something that allow rapid implementation. It could be cloud-based. They want to align what they want to achieve with the architecture they had in mind, which was a cloud-based technology, and a proven solution. If 42Q is well known in regulatory environments. The platform was configured to actually map all the process and data collection to ensure proper medical validation without impacting production, as defined by it was one of the rules, one of the challenges we had in place. System dramatically increased the data collection rates on the factory floor and capture multiple EGHR quality errors in real time, which basically allow or helped the customer to achieve the next important goal over here, which was the capacity, the capability, the EHR capability has ended up improving the first pass yield by 30%. And that was only during the POC, which increased efficiency, we eliminate the manual rework and ensures that the EHR quality matches the product build quality at the end of the production floor. And the data collection process have been cut by more than a half due to automatic electronic quality controls, which as you mentioned provides a full traceability with online documentation readily available for possible FDA audits or customer audits for that matter. With all those results, those good results and more, the customer ended up extending the relationship with 42Q beyond the POC and extend to their entire production floor. And some of the results, and hopefully, as John said, there's another smart story coming up. We're probably going to be providing now our next story, probably going to be around what happens beyond the POC. So when they expand it to the entire manufacturing floor, how is the yield now? So what else did it bring? And with that, I close my smart story for today. And back to you, John. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Yes. Thank you, Wellington. Thank you very much. This is a very impressive story. Thank you. All right. Let's get on to our last story for this morning. This is going to be Subba Rao, and he is a Director of Innovation to Market with Siemens. And this story is about building innovative companies from the ground up. And this case study is a multinational organization with 7 sites, 12 sales branches, a total workforce of over 1,500, doing a digital transformation to accelerate innovation, increase efficiency, and improve product quality. So, Subba, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for voting for this story. Just to get into the case study before what exactly led into the transformation for this customer. One of the key things that I want to start is, in general, there are a lot of product innovations that we are seeing in the market space. And are these product innovations, are they sufficient for them to bring it to the market in a competitive way without thinking about the process of innovating and digitalizing the supporting systems, right? Because we have to bring these product innovations that are going at much faster pace nowadays across the industries. What does it mean to bring those product innovations to life in a timely manner, in a safe way, and in a competitive way? So that's exactly what this case study is about. It's a high-tech pump manufacturer whose vision and journey to create a digital transformation for them to drive their product innovations, right, in a more efficient way to bringing them into the market. And as part of this journey, there are a lot of cultural, organizational aspects that they had to consider that more critical in bringing these innovations in the right time. So, John, if you can go to the next slide. Thanks. As I said, this manufacturer, who is a global manufacturer, manufacturing high-tech pumps with multiple production sites across 7 sites. Their business goal, they had several variations of different products, and they're getting a lot of, they have to sustain their existing product portfolio, and at the same time, there are more innovations that are coming into their product with a high mix of mechanical and electronic components so that they can give more value to their end customers. So one of the business goals that they had is, how do we bring these product innovations sustainably to our customers, and how digital transformation can help us in terms of improving the rate of innovation, because there is more new products that are coming, new variations to the products. and the complexity of the market space that they're addressing is increasing. The demands are increasing from the customer perspective as well. And at the same time, how this digital transformation is critical for them to increase their operational efficiency. That creates more value in the production processes and also during the sales process. That is very critical for the end customers of this customer. With these business goals, when they start looking at the business challenges that they had, is they are traditional means like a lot of homegrown systems, paper-based processes within the shop floor, but at the same time like a lot of product innovations going on within the product portfolio on the engineering side. So their challenges are how do we meet the changing end user requirements, because they're supporting their customers which are residential, commercial, and also agricultural industry segments. And the changing requirements that are coming, and how do they kind of like create a business model that helps their end customers. That's one of the key business challenges that they had. And how do we improve the transparency so that the information gets shared in the right way consistently across the departments within their own organization first, and then ultimately to their end customers. And at the same time, how we can leverage the technology, because like as I mentioned, like this customer, when they start before this journey, it's a lot of homegrown systems, paper-based processes across different departments. How we can leverage the technology to create a transparency of the data that drives more actions in the right direction. And at the same time, because it's not an easy journey whenever you think about digital transformation, and a lot of existing IT landscape that cannot be disrupted easily. So how do we integrate the new technologies into the existing landscape and build a backbone, especially when you look at like the processes and the innovation that needs to come into this enabling systems. They looked at shop floor as one of the key elements where they have to transform to provide more value to their end customers as well. So how do we integrate with the existing landscape, build the shop floor backbone that enables them to extend further towards the larger digital technologies and enabling the closed loop, not only within the shop floor processes, within the departments that are involved in the shop floor, but also further with engineering and ultimately towards the end customers as well. So with that, if I go to the next slide, John. So as this manufacturer started looking at the bottom-up approach, okay, with shop floor, if we have this mixed bag of homegrown systems and paper processes, that the information transparency is not good, and we have to improve that before we kind of like provide more value to our end customers. Digitizing the shop floor systems and creating the backbone is one of the initiatives that got started, where Siemens Op Center or next generation solutions, which is more advanced technologies and mobility enabled user experience, is one of the key elements that from the technology perspective they looked at and deployed the initial functions that kind of like integrates with their enterprise systems and also with the automation systems with the line, providing the right level of data intelligence for the operator based on their roles within the shop floor, either operators or the team leaders, so that they can take the appropriate actions in a timely manner. And at the same time, system making it more paperless, creating the paperless manufacturing, as Robert and Wellington mentioned. These are the typical challenges that we see in many manufacturers, and the maturity of each manufacturer is very different in terms of where they are. In this case, as I mentioned, there are more paper-based and mixed solutions. So for them, like getting the consistency in the data and automating the processes that provide the work in process information, traceability, and right instructions at the point of use, and integrating with the scheduling so that the proactive insights into what the impacts of the scheduling, so that they can provide the visibility to the end customers is another key element that kind of like automated their processes. And by having that, they were able to accurately predict like what is the promised date to the customers. Are they going to meet those? If not, what is the impact? And what type of decisions they have to take, right? So this was not possible before in a timely manner. Now with this set of MOM functions they deployed, it became much easier for them to kind of like provide more value to their end customers. And also internally, they were able to kind of manage the supply demand synchronization. Resources are utilized in a more efficient way, and having the data that's kind of like orchestrated between the engineering systems with automation and automating the processes of orders, delivering the right instructions, managing the data intelligence based on the roles tied to the scheduling, right? They were able to create the closed loop within the shop floor itself as a first step. And this is kind of like from the technology perspective, and all these was driven as an initiative from the executive level, which required a cultural change within the departments, because everybody has been used to doing things in certain way, and now with more data intelligence and more data visibility, they're more like proactive involvement from the teams. And that's kind of like one of the key things that this organization, this manufacturer saw as well, in terms of having more of their end users within their own organization involvement in this process. So John, if you can go to the next slide. So some of the key lessons during this journey, as they're going through this whole transformation, especially from the shop floor perspective, they realized that to accommodate all these innovations on the product side, or traditional processes that are in the shop floor and the technologies are just not sufficient. We have to look at like more automated processes that drives the paperless scenarios, and also kind of like leverage the right technology and technology partner that enables the closed loop process, not for today, but also tomorrow as they evolve into more digital transformation journey across the board. At the same time, one of the key elements is when I mentioned digital technology provider is looking at, okay, the solution that enables with more standard functionality that is scalable and configurable to their business processes. Because as I said, like this is a global company, they have different variations of the products, and also their sites are different as like any manufacturing organization. Each site has got like its own flavors of homegrown systems and processes. To bring some standardization, the system that they selected needs to have configurability. That's what they saw in the Siemens Op Center, providing the scalability not only for today, but for tomorrow as they get into further use cases that provide more value to their end customers, as the products are, as I said, like they're mix of more mechanical and electronics. So it kind of like what's the value they can give to their end customers as they get into much broader beyond MOM as well. And the data from the shop floor is critical to provide that value. At the same time, to get into this process implemented and the solution adopted by the end users, they have to manage this adoption conundrum, that's what I call it, with the culture in the organization. As I said, like every department is doing their own way, and to overcome that, you need to streamline the processes and create a team that kind of like works towards the common goal. And this is kind of like one of the key things that they put some measures where everybody is coming together and created an agile environment that helps to see the KPIs that they realized by having the system. And having this culture as a kind of like the change in the organization is become like a central element from the executive's perspective as well, to drive the change and go towards their digital transformation. And one of the key things they realized is by having the technology, the right technology that kind of like inspires not only the current workforce but also the future workforce, right? Use the technology to kind of like build for today and tomorrow is what like they always keep saying, so that like it helps them to transform in a methodical way, keeping the teams involved as they go through this journey. With that, I thank everybody again for selecting this story, and I'll pass it on to John and Chris for question and answers.
Suba, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Excellent story. So again, now we're going to get into our questions and answer section. So go ahead and start typing your questions into the question box that we have, and we will get to those questions. So again, I want to thank our three presenters, Robert, Wellington, and Suba. Thank you very much for your three stories and your presentations today. Thank you to ATS, to 42Q, and to Siemens for submitting these stories. These are some great stories. And again, thank you to everyone who submitted some stories there. As part of this has been a great year for our Smart Story Awards, and much, much thanks again to everybody that submitted stories. They were all great stories. And thank you again to our three winners today, Robert, Wellington, and Suba. So now, guys, we're going to put you on the spot. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Kammer. Chris is the chair of our Knowledge Committee. I've given everybody a couple of seconds here to enter some questions, so I'm sure we've got lots of questions here piling up for Chris. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you start ask some questions and get some answers from our three presenters this morning.
Great, thanks, John. I appreciate it. And before I jump in, I guess I'll reiterate per what John said. We had a lot of great submissions this year. And the three that were presented today were the ones that were selected as the most downloaded and the most interesting by the audience. Great stories, guys. We only gave each presenter 10 minutes per story to kind of present what their story was about. And for sure, you'll get a lot more out of each one of these if you take a look and download the stories from the MESA website. I know John will, at the end of this session, be providing you with a link in order to do that, but please do download these stories and read through them in more detail. 10 minutes just doesn't give any one of them enough justice, so please do that. And then before I jump into the Q&A, I also want to acknowledge that MESA and all of us understand the difficult conditions that are facing everyone with the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis. I'll point out that all of the stories, even though they were developed prior to things really getting bad with that, all these stories are about products and production that is life-sustaining. So I think it's really important to note that, you know, companies out there, manufacturing companies and solution providers that help deliver MES and other related digital transformation solutions to those production companies are really working hard to make sure that we can get over this crisis. I'd ask everybody out there, I know many of you are working from home, please continue to be safe, you know, follow all your local government regulations, and let's work together to put this behind us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into some of the Q&A. We did have a few really good questions. I'm going to start actually with Robert at ATS, since we haven't heard from you, Robert, for a few minutes here since the first presentation. And what I'll do is ask you, I'll ask you one, then I'll jump around a little bit to some of the other folks and may come back to you as well, because we do have a number of questions coming in online. So Robert, you mentioned that the baked goods manufacturing facility was a greenfield deployment. You did bring up that there were substantial cost reductions. Since this is a greenfield deployment, how did you measure or quantify cost reductions?
Yeah, nice, good question, Chris. Thank you for that. Yeah, it is a very good question. Now, can wonder how you can measure that in this case. Now, as I also mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, is that the solution was actually set up as a template solution, which meanwhile had rolled into a meat processing plant, and the meat processing plant is owned by the same client that did stand up the baked goods manufacturing facility. Now, the meat processing plant is a brownfield operation existing for about 25 years. And believe it or not, the new baked goods facility was actually modeled after this meat processing plant because, and especially in terms of sizes, volumes, the number of production lines, it was all very similar that they knew, at least at not at all points, of course, because the product that you're producing is different, but for some of the at least the operational side of things, they knew the number of employees they might need, and so on and so forth. They knew for certain processes, for example, data collection, putting together reports, doing a trace back, all these type of things. They knew the amount of time that it would take and the number of employees that it would take for them to hire. And now they chose to actually invest into the MES because that would be a one-time investment for them. And in that way, they were able to reduce actually the recurring costs for hiring these employees that they otherwise had to hire, but now they didn't even hire those people up front. So that is for them. It was a choice. Or what are we gonna do? Do we do this investment, or is it gonna be manual with the additional challenge to find the right people to do that? And so ultimately, that was for them how they were able to do some of the estimates for that.
Great, yeah, thank you for that. I'll move on to Wellington at 42Q. Wellington, you mentioned that the deployment that you spoke about was a cloud-based MES system. And I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit of the discussions and challenges that you might have had dealing with your customer on acceptance of a cloud-based deployment versus an on-premise deployment of MES. So, talk to us a little bit about how the customer accepted that, and also if you could talk to us a little bit about how you were able to deal with the automated data collection issues, considering that this deployment was in the cloud. Wellington?
Sure. No, thanks, Chris. Great question. And interesting enough, when 42Q was officially launching as an application, 42Q has over 25, almost 30 years of experience where originally developed in early in the 90s. We have been supporting our parent company until 2013 when we decided to go and experience the market. So when we were officially founded in 2016, between 2013 and 16, that was absolutely a concern. So customers had a tremendous concern about, the cloud-based technology, the security, latency, and all that. Today, that hasn't really been an issue for us. There's still one market that's a little bit resistant, in depending what they do, which is the defense market, pretty much, and it's an area that we play really well. We start seeing less resistance now, but from from the medical point of view, for this specific customer, medical compliance, actually they came after us because they wanted a cloud-based technology. They want something that in their mind, which is forward thinking, and that's the future. They want to make sure that since they would have to implement something, they would have to automate. They would like to experience the technology, and if everything went well, which it did, they would expand. And that's one thing that 42Q does really well, and that's a concept we came roughly about 2 years ago when we're transitioning now from this period where customers were had a little bit of concern about the cloud and say, how can we prove then that that's the future, that's where everybody want to be. We came up with our proof of concept. We have a couple of products in place or solutions that we call Rapid Series that allow customers to at a very low cost, at a very rapidly deploy 42Q, which takes about 2 to 4 weeks to get the initial configuration done for a limited set of capabilities in one product line, several part or few part numbers. Anyways, the defined scope, but in 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks, you get this product up and running. You can run this for 60 days, and then you can basically validate not just the product, but mitigate or eliminate your concerns regarding, the cloud technology or anything else. So from that perspective, it wasn't difficult at all. That's what the customer was looking for. The majority of the customers we got today, they are coming to us because that's what they're looking for. And when there is, and when the customer that for whatever reason we're engaging for one reason or another, it has been pretty easy to explain the advantages of the cloud. And an interesting data, when you look at production disruptions, and we go back maybe 10 years, we have less disruption today on a cloud than we had when the systems were on premises, which is a pretty interesting data for us.
Absolutely, yeah.
In terms of, I think the next part of your question was regarding automation, right?
Yes, particularly with the data collection. Yep.
Yeah, not a problem at all. So if you look at just moving from manual interaction, or paper-based or whatever, even just scanning things manually with a regular scanner and data collector, monitor, whatever, and moving these to automated machines. So today our platform has over 20, that was data from 2019. So probably today, close to 30,000 pieces of equipment is connected worldwide, and all types and kinds of equipment, which basically has allowed us to master, this part of the business, not just from the platform point of view, but as well as professional services that we have a highly educated and qualified team to do so. As my colleagues also mentioned, in some cases, we do rely on a middleware, and that's very important when you're dealing with the shop floor application with the PLC. So Capware OPC is one. We normally try not to get too much into the customer wave. The customer has their preferred middleware in place. We just use this. And what we have seen is that Capware is a very common one. We've seen customers now, mainly the ones opting for a cloud-based technology, really trying out Greengrass from AWS. But we can also interact directly with the machine depending on the situation via APIs. So that has been a big part of our business, been working really well.
Great, I appreciate that answer. Obviously cloud technology is a big part of the smart manufacturing landscape. And there are some applications that are now starting to become more prevalent in the cloud. So it's good to see that MES is one of those. So thank you very much, Wellington. The next question is for Suba. Suba, I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more on the lessons that you learned in your project around adoption of the new technology that you deployed in the digitalization journey, and how that needed to take into consideration cultural change within the organization.
Sure, John. Sure, Chris. One of the key things, as I mentioned, like in my story explanation, this manufacturer, they started looking at, okay, we have all these sites and we have this journey and goals to expand our business as well. So across the sites, there are common production challenges and common needs for work and safety, common needs for customer service that within their regions they want to kind of like fulfill their end customers, and empowering the team means one of the key thing is this is kind of like a top-down push from management side as part of the digital transformation. But at the same time, they realize like we have to empower the teams and the individuals to demonstrate the courage in terms of where the processes needs to be changed. It's not just adopting a technology, but while adopting the technologies, if there is a room for improvement into the process, that needs to be considered as well, right? That's one of the key things, because technology in some cases, it's just like they do it like, okay, we are doing it traditionally this way. Let's just put technology and come and mimic the process. So that's one of the key lessons that's kind of like learned, where yes, there is a room for process improvement to adopt the technologies in the right way so that brings more value. And this is done by empowering the teams so that they bring more innovative thought processes from the teams, involve them, create the agile environment so that they have the regular sprints within their own manufacturing circle departments, right? And bring the kind of right ideas and implement those as a processes that becomes like a solution not only for that individual site but across all the sites, right? And as the teams are involved and the more visibility of the measured success they were able to create, more members are now they want to get involved in this digital transformation process. This is one of the key things that the manufacturer learned in terms of like to make any digital transformation successful, a visionary is required, but at the same time, empowering the teams and driving their thought process with the technology as a complementary thing in improving the processes is one of the key lessons, I should say.
Great. No, I appreciate that, Suba. That's a good point, and I think that's something that a lot of the ERP vendors and solution providers learned early on, is that it's not good necessarily to automate a process which is flawed. It's best to make sure that process is optimal before you automate it. So cultural change is a big part of that. Thank you very much. Now, we're getting very close. In fact, we are at the top of the hour, but at the risk of going a little bit over, I'm just going to ask Robert from ATS one more question. And Robert, I'm going to ask you to keep your answer to just a few seconds here. Tell us very briefly about the mock recall that you mentioned, a monthly mock recall that your customer is executing. Was that their requirement? Was it something that you brought in and suggested to them? Is it something that their customer insisted on? What are your thoughts there?
It's a good question. So this mock recall done by their QA department is really part of their, I would say, standard process that they do, just because they want to be ready with this process. And well, the reason that they've been doing this because it cost them, it was always paper-based as far as that meat processing facility goes. It was always paper-based, and they knew that it took them more than a day with multiple people to go through all the paperwork. Well, first of all, dig up all the paperwork that's applicable to the time frame, and then go through everything, because it took so much time and involved so many people. And then also at the end of all the hours working with the team, it was questionable how trustworthy the data was. And now they saw after the implementation of the solution that it was really, let's say, within several minutes, just to one person, because the data was present. It was eye-opening for them. So they were sure that it was so important for them to go with that also into their greenfield. But in short, I mean, to answer your question, this is what the customer an exercise that they were doing, and they were really looking for an improvement on that front, which they definitely achieved.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you, Robert. And thank you for making that brief. Well, listen, Robert, Wellington, Suba, we have a lot more questions that have come in, but we are running out of time. What I will do is I'll turn this back over to John for close, and maybe what we can do is get some of these questions that have been brought up, other questions that have been brought up that we didn't have time to air online here. We can try to get them answered with in some sort of a written fashion. So, John, you want to take it over from here and bring us to a close?
Yeah, so again, I just want to thank our three presenters, Robert, Wellington, and Suba. Thank you for presenting your stories today. I really appreciate that. I want to remind everybody that you can continue to download the stories at smartstoryawards.com. Please go on there. There's so many great stories. Please download the stories there. And the last thing I simply want to say is, first of all, thank you all to our audience who participated today. Thank you for tuning in and listening to these three great stories. If you have more questions about MESA, if you got more questions about the stories, if you got specific questions for our presenters, please just go to mesa.org and you can contact MESA. You can learn more about MESA. You can contact our presenters. You can do all of those things. But again, thank you very much for being here today and for listening to our stories. And please go to mesa.org when you get a chance. Thank you very much. And I think we are closed.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.